mentioning high grade vintage, and you mentioned several players, but you went by the Willie Mays. And the reason why I want to talk about Willie Mays for a second is because that's a card that I'm currently, and I have been on the lookout for over 10 years, maybe close to 15 years now, Eddie. And I've never had the chance to buy a copy that I really liked. So you mentioned that you think that high grade vintage is sort of where it's at, and I'm gonna put out there that I think mid grade is all. I mean, all grades of vintage. You use the term real collectors and investors. As far as collectors go, I think a lot of people just want a copy of a card.
Sure.
And of course everybody has different financial resources, so they'll add what they can. So for me, yes, I'd love to add a PSA 6, 7, or 8 Willie Mays 51 Bowman, but that's now four times what I could have bought it for in 2008. So now I'm thinking to myself, Eddie, I'd be happy with a nice PSA 4. What are your thoughts on nice mid grades? Like, I'm talking to PSA 4. I find there's a big difference between a PSA 3 and a PSA 4 in terms of visible flaws and really the amount of them. So what do you think of a nice PSA 4 Willie Mays Bowman rookie as an alternative to say, and to save some money at the purchase time, over a PSA 7 Willie Mays, which is going to cost you close to $100,000?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, even though I like the high grade vintage, I go after a lot of mid grade stuff, and I think uh, it, this is the best chance and the best opportunity for me to use the word undervalued. I think a lot of low to mid range vintage is still super undervalued. When you talk about guys like Willie Mays and a 51 Bowman or 52 tops, um, if you can find nice copies of PSA or PSA or SGC threes, or even fours, and sometimes you can find a really good eye appeal, and the card can be really centered real well in a PSA 4, but maybe there's some creases on it that you really can't see. That's where there's value. I mean, I think eye appeal is good. I mean, we always hear people say you buy the card, not the grade. So, and that really holds true in vintage. And no two vintage cards are the same. Um, but you can find some really pretty, PSA threes and fours. I mean, I've had many Hank Aaron rookies, Jackie Robinson rookies that were low grade three, fours, and fives, and they are, super ultra liquid always. And you can never go wrong putting your money into any type of, vintage card, whether it's a one or whether it's a high grade nine. So
Yeah. When it comes to vintage, and by I'm talking like early 50s and before, I'm starting to think that a PSA 4, 5, 6 is mid grade, 7, 8, 9, 10 would be high grade, and 1, 2, 3 would be low grade. That's for my own approach and how I would govern my own sort of just the way I analyze things. So that's where I'm at right now on that. And I think you're right though, and I think it's true. There's value in any Willie Mays 51 Bowman, never mind his 52 tops, and especially his 53 tops, which I think is my favorite vintage card of all time, just from an aesthetics perspective. The image of him on the 53 tops is an amazing, amazing card. So, okay, this is good stuff. Let's go say hi to the chat, see what we got. Hold your thought. We'll come right back to it. I wanted to bring up Dave's comment right here. He says that he's telling me on the Bowman Maze to go after a PSA 1 or a 2 that has slight paper loss on the back, but the rest of the card is a 7. So that's a great recommendation. Paper loss on the back, you're not going to see it as much on the front. The only thing I would say to that is I don't know that I want, it would have to be minor paper loss for me to want the card. I'd rather have a pinhole that you can barely see go through
sure.
the card that would otherwise be a 7 that is now an automatic 1. To me, that's where there's monster value. What do you think about a card like that? A PSA 1 that looks like a 7 but for a pinhole?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm right with you. I think pinholes. I love cards with pinholes, man. I mean, it's that mystique, that nostalgia, that because you never know where it was at on a wall, right, in someone's room or something like that. They actually took it and put it up somewhere, and that what gets me thinking about it. Like, where was this card at, and who had this card? Who put the pin into it? There's a ton of nostalgia behind it. So, and I think pinholes, they don't get enough respect. I mean, they get knocked down, right? If it has a pinhole, automatically it gets knocked down to like a two or three, and the whole card could be perfect. So, but paper loss on the back. I mean, listen, those two are still hard to find, right? But I'm with you. I like a clean front and back.
Same here. Same here. Right here, Frankie says that he'll pick up any Mays, Mantle, and Clemente he sees in any grade. Doesn't even matter. And that's, I mean, let's face it. Like you said, Eddie, there's always liquidity on any cards in any condition of these players. So Frankie obviously knows what he's doing, and he'll pick them up wherever and whenever he can. Let's say hello to Jeff McMahon, Albert Jones. What's going on? Chris C. I see you got a Nolan Ryan rookie in a 4.5, but looks 5 or better. Very nice. Congratulations. Chris C says even 70s are considered vintage. It's almost 50 years ago. Oh, for me, definitely, Chris. I consider vintage up to 1989, actually, for me personally. But when I was talking about, I was dividing it up even further to talk about sort of where I see how I would look at, 4 or 5. To me, a card from the 70s is going to be assessed differently by myself in terms of, my standards for what I want in my collection.
It's